Hi, so today we're going to make spinach and feta pie. It's often called Spanakopita. Uh, it's a Greek pie, and we're going to start with crust. So you can use a ready-made store-bought crust, or you can make your own. If you want to make your own, I can give you a recipe which will be attached with the recipe for the rest of the pie. So if you have a ready-made crust, either it comes in a sheet and you roll it out and you fit it into a pie pan, or it comes in a tin already. And so what we're going to do is, with this pie crust, we're going to poke it with a fork. So it doesn't puff up. We're going to line it with foil. And we're going to it's called blind baking, where you pre-bake the crust, not all the way, but so that it's cooked before you put your ingredients in and it stays crisp after you fill it. So I'm just, like I said, I'm poking it with a fork. I'm going to line it with crust, with the foil. And we're going to bake it in a 375-degree oven for first, just so that the crust is set, for about 10 to 13 minutes. Then we'll take out, we're going to fill it with some beans. Now these, you can fill it with rice, you can fill it with beans. This is a combination of rice and beans, which I save it and use it every time I fill a crust. So this keeps it from puffing up and staying, and it keeps it in its form. So we're going to put these in the oven. So we're taking the beans out. And we'll bake it for another, let's do 8 minutes, until it's a light brown. So we baked the crust without the foil for another 8 minutes or so. Let me see if I can hold this up so you can see it's light brown. It's not fully baked, but pretty close. And we're going to make the filling. So we're going to start with about 5 cloves of garlic, and the best way to peel this garlic is to smash it with the side of the knife, and the paper comes off quite easily. And we'll just snip off that little root end, and then we'll just mince the garlic. So it's a bunch of scallions. Usually in a bunch of scallions is about 6 scallions. So here, I like to cut my scallions into thirds about, line them up, and then mince them. For me, the easiest way to chop is to leave the tip of the knife on the cutting board. It never leaves the cutting board, and then you just use your wrist to go up and down, and you use a claw to hold whatever ingredients you're slicing or mincing, and that way when you claw you can't cut off your fingers. I suppose you could if you weren't looking, but it's a lot harder to cut off your fingers that way. So we've minced, what is this? Dill. Blanking today. So I just cut off the ends, and because we're going to saute it and not use it raw, you don't have to get rid of all the stems because we're sauteing it, it will cook down. But if there's some thick ones, you definitely you would like to get rid of some of the thick ones. It's a bunch of parsley. So this parsley is starting to go, but you can still use it. See the yellow pieces in there? At this time in our lives, we will take what we can get. So it's not a perfect looking bunch of parsley. We're cooking it, we're not eating it raw, so it doesn't have to be the perkiest bunch of parsley. And kind of just pile it all up together. It's easier to cut if it's in a big mound. You would either use 6 bags, which is about 30, each bag is about 6 ounces, so 36 ounces. So this is about 36 ounces, which is 2 1/4 pounds of baby spinach. So now, we'll heat up, I'd say about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. So we're gonna add the garlic and the scallions. This down for a couple of minutes. So this is on about medium-high. And it's just cooking for a couple of minutes. You can see there. And we're going to add the spinach. Now this spinach looks like it's taller than the actual pot, but if you keep stirring, it will wilt down, and we should be able to add all of it. Cross fingers. As you know, spinach has a lot of water in it, so once it hits the heat, it wilts pretty quickly. So I like to bring the bottom up to the top so that the top wilts down. Okay, now we've got it all in here and it's cooked, so it's just wilted. I'm gonna bring the camera here so you can see. And we are now going to add the remaining ingredients. So that's the dill, the parsley, okay, now that this is all sauteed, it's got the spinach, the garlic, the dill, the parsley, all in it. We're gonna pour it into a colander because we don't want all that liquid in there. I showed how I pressed against the sides to get rid of some of that liquid. So we're gonna put it back in the pot. And we are going to add, this is about 6 to 8 ounces of feta cheese. And 4 eggs. I'm going to put them in this bowl actually and scramble them up before I that with a fork and add it to the mixture. And actually by soaking the spinach, I keep saying soaking, by draining the spinach, it's cooled it down enough so that it does not cook the eggs before we bake it. I'm going to show you what this looks like. So if you want more feta cheese, you can definitely put more feta cheese in. If you don't like as much, you can put less. But 6 to 8 ounces of crumbled feta cheese is a good amount. And then we're going to add some salt and pepper and about a half teaspoon of nutmeg. I like to use a whole nutmeg, fresh nutmeg. If you want to use powdered nutmeg, you can. I'm going to kind of guess how much nutmeg I'm grating in here. This is just a rasp, they call it. So that's about a half a teaspoon. Let's get a little more. And then, now there's a fair amount of salt in feta cheese. So I don't usually measure this, but I would do a big pinch. And a pinch is actually all your fingers, not just 2 fingers. Let me get that all mixed up. So now we've got the eggs mixed in, everything's mixed in. Those eggs were the last thing to mix in, and we're just going to dump it into the baked pie crust. Now, if you can't get feta cheese, you could use cottage cheese. It doesn't have the tang that feta cheese does, but you could throw in, you know, cheddar cheese if you really wanted to. You want a sharp cheese, so I would use sharp cheddar. It's not going to be the same, but it would still be a spinach pie, and it would still be delicious. I think what makes it is the dill, of course the garlic, and the feta, but the feta is hard for you to find. Don't worry about it. Use another cheese. Okay. There. And then we'll just bake it for 350 degrees for 30 minutes. So here it is, the finished pie. My version of spinach pie. It's not the traditional Spanakopita or spinach pie, which would have been in a phyllo crust, but it's just as delicious and a lot less labor intensive. You can enjoy it as a main dish or a side dish, and I hope you like it. Thanks for coming to my class.